Hello everyone, it's Mark here from Joshua 24:15 Outdoors. Just got some exciting news for you before we jump into podcast episode 7. We have officially partnered with Christian Bow Hunters of America. This is very exciting for us. We're so proud to be joining with Christian Bow Hunters of America. And if you don't know about the organization, I would encourage you to look them up, give a quick Google search, pretty easy to find. And if you like what you see, consider joining them. They would appreciate it. We would appreciate it. Everybody would appreciate it. So that's about it. That's the exciting news. We hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to Joshua 24:15 Outdoors, proudly in partnership with Christian Bow Hunters of America. Settle the debate on catfish and bad fishing. Oh, there's a debate. No debate, right? All right. Hello and welcome to Joshua 24:15 Outdoors. We are in a heated debate with catfishing versus bass fishing. This may destroy the podcast altogether. I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
It's already destroyed.
I don't think so. I just don't see how you get so much enjoyment of just sitting there watching the water, maybe a ripple or two, waiting, and more waiting until you finally get a bite. I would rather walk up and down the bank until I get a bite. At least I'm entertained.
Well, you entertain me, that's for sure. Your ignorance of catfishing. What's the difference between sitting and waiting on a catfish to bite and sitting and waiting on a deer to come?
Well, I mean,
well, no.
There's a big difference.
What is it?
There's a huge difference.
What is it?
Catfish are boring. Deer is more of a thrill. There's more of a thrill in waiting on a deer than there is a catfish.
It sounds to me like you're bad at catfishing.
I am, and that's absolutely that.
There you go. See, if you were proficient at catfishing, I am very proficient at bass fishing. Very proficient. I just have had my day of bass fishing, and I've caught enough 5 to 9 pound bass in southern Illinois to fill the back of a pickup truck. So, yeah, there's that. You know,
I've caught a lot of bass in southern Indiana and western Kentucky. So now,
yeah, but you're still young. You haven't acquired a lot of common sense yet.
Oh, we got plenty of common sense. I know that bass fishing is better than catfishing.
No.
Oh man, give me a bait caster and some soft plastics, and I will walk a bank and catch just tons of bass. Okay, maybe not tons. That's probably an over-exaggeration. And then again, I'm a fisherman, so
yeah,
my fish was this big versus my fish was this big. You can't see my illustration through the podcast, but you can imagine it goes from big to small. You don't say anything.
I'm not saying anything. I'm just trying to live in your imaginary world is what I'm trying to do at this point.
So as you can tell, I guess today's episode is just bass fishing versus catfishing. Well, that's pretty much the gist of it, because we've been arguing about it for weeks now.
Weeks and weeks. Weeks is more like it. And I grew up bass fishing, and I bass fished. Excuse me. I bass fished mainly until, I don't know, I was probably in my 30s, and I have always loved to catch large catfish, and I finally decided that that's what I was going to focus the majority of my fishing on. And now I love to ultralight fish as well. I like to fly fish.
See, that's something I've never done. I've never been fly fishing, but I've always wanted to try it.
Well, it's something that we can do this year while we're planning our catfishing trips. Because as soon as the river gets down a little bit more you will either go in me catfishing.
I will go.
Only see me.
Look, I'm gonna go catfishing. I just prefer bass fishing. I will go and sit and wait and be bored with you just so you have company while you're out there waiting on that cat.
See, that's the thing. I take my company with me already because I go and enjoy God's creation and talk to God while I'm there.
That's what I do while I'm bass fishing. I just have more fun doing it.
It is the exact same for me as going deer hunting. It's the same for me as going to set traps and then waiting to see what you catch. It's all about being able.
All right, here's the difference. Catfishing and deer hunting. Okay. If I'm going deer hunting, there's much more excitement and anticipation in the waiting because I know when that deer gets there and I put him in the dirt, I'm going to get a good meal out of it. With a catfish, you're going to get a bottom-feeding, just dirt pile of a meal from a catfish.
Wow. What?
Than you would from a deer. That's the difference. Now listen, you asked the difference.
Prior to tonight, I really considered you like a son. I'm really trying to decide whether I want to put you up for adoption or use you as pet bait.
Just chunks and throw it out there. Those little bottom feeders and make sure it hits the bottom.
Once you learn how to properly clean catfish, then the catfish comes out just as white a meat as a bass or a crappie or a bluegill. And I eat all kinds of fish. No fish is a throwback fish to me because fishing to me is all about putting fish in the freezer for the wintertime.
But bass tastes better.
I like bass. I've got no problem with eating bass. I'll eat it.
Oh, but bluegill and crappie probably better than bass.
They are. Crappie's the finest fish that's out there.
Bluegill, really good.
Bluegill is right there too. But I love the taste of good clean catfish. And after learning how to properly take care of catfish, taking care of the meat as you fillet them and get the dark meat out, and then soaking those fillets in vinegar and salt water, that comes out as white as a piece of paper, and it is absolutely just a delicious meat. Now, a catfish that has not been properly taken care of
will taste bad.
It will taste bad.
Yeah.
But any fish that's not properly taken care of is nasty to me.
All right. So if you haven't figured it out, we are kind of joking, but at the same time, being serious. But this was kind of more of a fun episode. And we're going to talk about fishing.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about fishing this time. We're approaching spring. We are getting into, we're near pre-spawn for bass. Probably here at the end of February, early March. So it's kind of what we're going to get into today, just techniques. Maybe we'll go over that. Baits I like to use, baits you like to use for catfishing. I'll talk about bass fishing.
Oh, I have baits I like to bass do.
It's probably going to be chunks of me after this episode.
It could be.
But we're just having a little fun with this episode today, so we hope you still enjoy and get something out of our
won't you
banter.
Won't you throw something biblical out here that
we got some messages. We'll get to the message. We'll get to the message. The message for this one, being we're talking about fishing, we could go to Jesus after his resurrection. Once he was resurrected, or when he come back, resurrected before he ascended, he shared a meal with everyone. And what was it? Loaves of bread and a lot of fish. A lot of fish. I'm talking a lot of fish. And it probably wasn't bass or catfish, so there's that.
Probably not. It was probably a pretty nasty fish.
That's the message. So when we're fishing, most of the time we're getting very little. And by very little, it could mean 20 or 30 compared to what Jesus was giving. Jesus was giving abundance. And that's what he was brought to the table. Jesus could turn very little into a lot.
As he can do with your life.
As he can definitely do with your life.
The meal that he provided for all of those people, it shows what he can do with just a little bit in your life. If you will just give him what the little boy had 2 fish and 5 loaves. So, that's a very small amount when you're talking about all the people that were there. And when you are willing to give God the little bit that you may have, he can increase. And I'm not talking about monetarily. He could do whatever he wants to do. If he wants to increase you monetarily, he can. But that's not where you will find the greatest joy and the greatest satisfaction in your life. People think money will buy them happiness, but no, money will buy you nothing but problems if you do not give it to God.
You look at the lives of many celebrities, how many of them have it, you would think have everything, but they're so miserable.
Yeah, and it's a high mortality rate of suicide, because they do not find the peace and the comfort and the satisfaction that everyone is looking for. That can only come from the abundant life that Jesus can give you. And that story is just a depiction of what he can do in your life when you give your life to him.
Oh yeah.
I would much rather give him my life, and my life is increased by the people that he chooses to allow me to go forth and share the gospel with them. Than for, me to have a job that pays tons of money and, I could just go buy anything I want. That creates a very spoiled society is what that does. And there's nothing wrong with having money.
That's what we have today, a spoiled society. Everybody wants everything instant. Now it got so used to everything just being convenient and right at your fingertips.
Speaking of which, that leads right into needing that instant gratification of bass fishing.
No. First of all, let me say, before we get back into an argument, I want to say that the heart of that message was that Jesus can do a lot with a little. And like you said, maybe not just monetarily, though he can, especially if your heart is in the place of giving more with what you have in terms of in terms of money. But it could also mean maybe more victories. Maybe you have very little victories in what you're struggling with, and he can give you more victories or more love. You have very little love you're giving people. You can get more of that through Christ is when you let him love through you.
Years ago, I did have a very hard heart, and I prayed and I asked God one day. I went to the altar and prayed and I asked him.
Now, wait a minute. You're a catfisherman, so you probably still have a hard heart from just waiting and not getting very much.
Oh, no, I'm very satisfied with my catfish. And I leave with a cooler full every time I go, generally. Just like if I'm bass fishing, it's just, God gives it to me because he just...
Because he provides.
He does provide. But when I prayed that prayer that day, asking him to soften my heart, he did soften my heart, and he gave me a heart for people. He took something that was basically useless other than for my own family, because that's all I really cared about. And he turned that into something that I wanted to help people. I wanted to try to help people meet their needs. Now, I've never been in a situation where I could help people financially, but he has always put me in a position to where I could help people in what they truly needed. And amazingly, a lot of that has been through food, whether it being some of the deer that I kill, processing them, packaging them up, take them to a family that I know is hungry, or through fish, whether it be bass, bluegill, catfish, whatever it is, catch a big mess of fish, clean them, take them to people that are hungry. But especially through several of the churches that he has directed me to preach at, over the years as a fill-in pastor. I do a lot of, if a pastor, I'm basically on call, and if a pastor can't make it to church or wakes up sick or needs a vacation, whatever it may be, there's a lot of pastors in my area that they know they can contact me, and as long as I have time to get to their church before service, I make myself available you can call me at last minute and I'm going to show up, and I'm going to have a message that God's laid on my heart to be able to share with people. But one of those churches has a food pantry, and although I myself do not have the finances to be able to go and buy someone groceries and, take care of that need, this church, even though it has been over a year since I have preached at that church, this church, and it's at Elizabethtown, Illinois. It's called Peters Creek Baptist Church. I love this church. It's a wonderful church family of mine. They've treated me so good. I preached there for almost a year straight while they were looking for a pastor. But they have been so generous with their food pantry. Anytime that I have found some family that I wanted to bless and to help, or just knew that they were struggling to be able to put food on the table, this church has been so freely open to me going up there, and they just filling my truck up to be able to take back to that family.
I think that's important to say too. That's the other part of what Joshua 24:15 outdoors ministry is all about: providing or supplying food to others in need through the outdoors, fishing, hunting, whatever. That's a very good. I think sometimes maybe more than monetarily, just the food aspect of that helps people a lot.
Well, I tell you, if through this ministry, people will come and learn to hunt, learn to fish, learn to shoot bows and firearms, and the game is there. God put the game there on this planet for us to eat. I mean, it's there. We can supply for our families. If a person will take and invest the time to learn how to do this, you go back 150 years, if you didn't know how to go take it yourself, you weren't going to eat it. And
you're out of luck.
As bad as it sounds, the day is coming once again to where if you can't supply for it yourself, you may not be able to have it again. Now, I don't know whether that's going to be 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, or next week. As long as we rely strictly on the government for everything and rely on a drive-through window to be able to get a meal, we're setting ourselves up for
failure. Yep.
You have an entire society that has no idea how to grow a garden, how to go catch a fish, how to go kill a squirrel, let alone be able to clean it and cook it. I am so thankful that I raised my family on wild meat.
To be self-sustaining.
My sons, they as soon as they had a tooth, they were eating deer meat or squirrels or rabbits.
And that's awesome.
It's I've even got pictures of both of my boys chewing on antlers when they were teething.
And that's the other thing too. That's awesome. That's the other thing too. I think is important to define sort of what Joshua 24:15 Ministries is about, and what we believe as hunters and fishermen. It's not about the trophy. It is about putting food on the table. It is about providing for your family and others. It's more than just going out and having an adventure, though that has its place. At the end of the day, it's about, well, first of all, experiencing God in the outdoors, and number two, providing for your family, whether that be with skills and knowledge that they will need to fend for themselves, provided they have to, or you being the one going out there and getting that deer, getting that squirrel, turkey, whatever it may be, to provide that meal for your family. That's what it's all about.
I tell you, first you have to really, you have to redefine what you consider a trophy. Okay. So,
Yeah.
um,
I'm talking about in terms of
I understand.
what you're seeing on TV.
I know that's exactly right.
The people to understand that
Exactly.
what you're seeing on TV and these people like, oh, this monster buck.
Yeah.
That's great. But that's not what it's about. And I'm not saying that for everyone who says that on these buck hunting shows and
Right. And a lot of people
feels that way.
different position in their life. You know,
Yeah.
A lot of people don't, their families may not eat the wild meat. There may become a time in the future that they'll have to learn how to eat that wild meat. But, you know, a lot of people hunt for a lot of different reasons, and that's okay with me.
Yes.
Yes. You know, we no longer, my kids are grown, they're out of the house, they got families of their own. You know, I no longer have to hunt and fish to supply a meal. I now choose to hunt and fish to supply some of our meals. If me and my wife, if we want to have something else now, we're at the point in our lives now we can have whatever, you know, basically whatever we want. I still want to, for the most part, I want to supply as much meat and fish as I possibly can for us, for our meals. And, you know, and the older I get and the longer I do this, you know, my standards have changed of what I do want to shoot. I'm going to shoot some does.
Yeah.
I'm going to shoot some does for meat. And as time has went on, I always said that I would never be a, quote, trophy hunter. And I'm still not a trophy hunter. But I do wait on an older deer now, as far as a buck, than I used to.
I appreciate that too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. That you saying define what you mean by trophy, or defining your definition of a trophy. Because I think also for you, as you've pointed out to me, your trophy hunts, what you're getting when you get that buck or whatever, is not just about the deer itself. It's about the memories you're making going out there that makes it a trophy. It's about what you're learning out there in the process of what makes it a trophy. So value in the process also.
Right.
What makes that experience a trophy, that deer a trophy to you. And that's awesome. And if I'm on that matter, I'm gonna shout out Ben Rising and Whitetail Edge for what he just said, the same thing that you just said. In you know, he's a more experienced hunter now, so he's going out there and getting those more mature deer. They don't have to be monsters by any means, but it's also the experience and what God puts in front of him that makes that the trophy.
You know, a lot of these guys, most of these guys on TV, they target specific deer. And, you know, I have, in my life, in 41 years or whatever of bow hunting or deer hunting, I have targeted one specific deer one time, and I killed him. That was in 2022. That's the only time I've ever specifically targeted a deer and set up and made it happen. Any other time, you know, I know a lot of the bucks that are around those areas. I set up on the sign for where I think the bucks are going to be and what I know is going to happen during the rut. And then I just make a decision each time an animal comes by if that is a deer that I choose to shoot. And the great thing to me, and I wish everybody thought this way, you know, when I, as an Illinois resident, when I pay my $26.50 for a either sex tag and a antlerless only tag, that gives me the right on that either sex tag to decide what I want to shoot. It doesn't matter anyone else.
You have that right.
Decide for me.
That's your right to shoot whatever you want to at that point. You paid the money.
Yeah. So many people get upset because Jim Bob shot a buck that
younger than what they would like.
Well, younger or smaller than what they would like, because they want the entire deer herd to get, you know, the bucks all to get to a certain age to grow these 200-inch deer. And I think it is destroying the whole mentality of deer hunting.
Well, yeah, because you don't know, that could be that guy's only time to go out and hunt and try to put a meal on the table for his family for the year, maybe.
Yeah.
That could last him the rest of the year. And you don't know that. So you telling him that wasn't a good decision, he needed to pick a bigger deer, that's not fair.
Yeah, it could also be the biggest deer he's ever shot, and he may be tickled to death. I really enjoyed years ago.
That's the trophy to him.
That's the trophy to him. And he paid that money to be able to go and decide what that trophy was going to be.
Yes.
I really miss the check stations. We used to go to the check stations and have to check your deer in, and there were people gathered around. And it didn't matter if people showed up with a button buck or a fawn with spots.
It was fun, though.
It was fun. People were congratulating people.
Yeah.
People were just having a good time, and the camaraderie that went along with that. And now...
Yeah, because you got to hear the stories. You got to hear their stories, and maybe it's a buck that was special to them, big or not, because this is one they had seen a year before,
Yep.
2 years before, whatever the case may be. And that was their buck, and they finally got it. And you got to hear those stories, and there was something to that.
There's been a lot of bucks that I have shot over the years, and does but especially bucks that a lot of other people would not have shot because of the size of them.
Yeah.
Something special happened in that hunt or in that situation with that deer that made me consider that my trophy for that year. And I took that deer so that every time that I look at that set of antlers, I recall that hunt. I recall the smells of that day. I can feel the temperature of that day. I can feel every aspect of that hunt. And that, to me, is what the true trophy is. Now,
Yeah.
I've got deer on the wall that are pretty big in my book. But those deer are no more special or important to me than any of the small deer that are in my living room.
They all for you told a story.
They all told a story.
Anyways, Mr. Catfish, pal.
I forgot.
We got sidetracked, and that's all right. But I am curious. Let me correct myself from a previous episode. Sorry, Mrs. Comer, you don't use chicken livers. So I am curious. What do you use when you're catfishing? Because I would grew up on either chicken livers or that dough stuff that you put on that Play-Doh.
It really depends on if I'm fishing in a pond. I use a dip bait, and it is you use a plastic worm. It's got ribs or holes in it, and you stick it down in the jar of bait. It's
right.
Kind of like the dough, but it's more.
Get it all stinky.
Yeah, and if I'm in a pond, I use that.
Get it all stinky for those bottom feeders.
I don't fish ponds very much because I like fishing the river, and I like fishing the river from the bank, and I use cut bait. Most all the time I use cut bait. I generally take a box of night crawlers with me. I catch the majority of my big catfish on large pieces of cut.
Okay, speaking of hunting, back to hunting for a second, but it also ties into fishing. Have you ever hunted for night crawlers?
Yeah.
That is fun.
Yeah.
That is some fun stuff.
Yeah.
Me and a buddy used to do that. We'd go night crawler hunting at night and use that for bait the next day for whatever kind of fishing we were doing.
Yeah, I have done that. My wife she grew up by a lake, close to a lake out in the country, and she told stories about her and her brother. Her brother had a Volkswagen Beetle, and they would drive around in the hay pasture with the windows down, and as the grasshoppers would collect on the windshield, they would reach around on the windshield and drag the grasshoppers off and put them in jars to sell them to the people that lived at the lake.
That's not a bad idea.
No, it was a great idea.
That's genius.
It's
entrepreneurship.
There's just so much. There's so much fun. Anybody can go fishing. Not everybody has the opportunity to go hunting. I mean, anybody could, I guess, but anyone can go fishing. There is places that anyone can go, and you don't have to have the kind of equipment that I use for trying to catch,
Right.
30, 40, 50-pound catfish. And you don't have to have the specialty equipment that you use and I still have for trying to catch monster bass. You can take a daggone cane pole and a cork and a hook and a worm, and you can go catch a fish. And that's the beauty of fishing to me. There's no reason that anyone...
You don't really have an excuse. Yeah, you don't really have an excuse for not going or for not being able to do it. Because you can get a stick. You can get a sturdy stick and some line or twine or whatever. Get you a hook and throw it on there and cast it on out there.
Yeah, I slowed down a lot on my bass fishing. I used to be just a bass fishing addict. And as my shoulders wore out and I started having more and more trouble with my arms, I have constant tendonitis. It never goes away. It's in my forearms. So the more I cast, the worse it gets. And the more I crank on a bait caster, the worse it gets. So that really was one of the main reasons that I started slowing up on my bass fishing. But what I do instead, I love to ultralight fish. So, and my wife loves to fish. So we take our ultralights and our spinning gear and we go to ponds and we bluegill fish and crappie fish and bass fish. I just use smaller stuff now because it doesn't hurt to cast it like that. I still have all my bass stuff. And believe me, if I find a pond that I believe has got big bass in it or stumble upon a pond that's not been fished in years, I go and I get my stuff and I go back and I find out what's in that pond. And generally I'll catch me a couple 7-8 pound bass out of that pond. That'll do me for a few years. And then
there you go.
I'll go back to my bluegill fishing and catfishing. But I just dearly love to sit on that riverbank. I find peace at that riverbank, watching the water just slowly go by, listening to the moan of the towboats as they come up, watching the sun come up. One of my favorite things is to get off work here at 5 o'clock and go straight to the sandbar. Go before it ever breaks daylight, get my lantern set up, get my 5 or 6 rods, whatever I've took that day, get them all out and the tight lines ready and everything baited up with, I am not there looking to catch a bunch of fish. That's not why I'm there. I'm there looking for a big fish. So I'm using 9-10 hooks. I'm using giant pieces of bait. And if I sit there all day and do not catch a big fish, it's fine. I don't care. I have sit there and thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I have relaxed, and I have talked to God, and I've experienced God while I'm there. But if I get a hit, and that rod bows over, and it's got that piece of bait in its mouth, it's going to be a good fish, and it's going to be a heck of a fight.
All right. Now, I know you're curious, so let me tell you my go-to bass fishing bait.
Don't tell me.
It is. All right. Now, it used to be spinner baits. Big spinner bait guy.
Yep.
Love using spinner baits.
Yes, I used to be.
Get a little Strike King spinner bait or Booyah, whichever. Throw it on there and go, especially night fishing. Until someone turned me on to, I can't remember who, just a little sticko worm. Hit a straight worm on a Texas rig.
Yeah.
My goodness, that is my new go-to for the last, probably 3 or 4 years that I went bass fishing. I haven't got to go in a while, but I'm going to change that this year. But yeah, just a sticko worm on a Texas rig. You cast that out there, you give it a little jerk action here and there.
Well, I have bass fishing that I like.
I didn't know.
If they're on, I'm talking to these people. If they are pre-spawn or on the nest, I like black lizards. Black lizards are absolutely the most killer bait in the world as far as a soft plastic. But I am a crankbait guy. And I a shallow crankbait guy. I have a tackle box full of man's 1- crankbaits. At the max, they will run 1 foot deep. and I have caught, I don't know how many bass over 5 pounds that I have caught on the large one that's 3/8 of an ounce, and the 1/4 ounce one. My biggest bass that was 9 pounds 8 ounces. It was on one that was called a gray ghost, and it was a 5/8 ounce, not 3/8. It was a 5/8 ounce. Looked like a cannonball when it hit the water. It's so big, but when a bass hit that gray big bait, you knew it was going to be a good solid bass.
And they put up one heck of a fight.
They do. It's insane the amount of fight that they.
It doesn't matter how big it is. They put up one heck of a fight. You have a little 1 pounder makes it feel like a 5 or 6. They put up so much fight.
No, that's why I like to fit. That's why I like the ultralight. I like the ultralight, and I got a whole box full of micro crankbaits that I use with my ultralight and catch a ton of bass on them. But, a bluegill fight's so hard, and I've been blessed to have access to just some amazing bluegill ponds and catch plate-sized bluegill. And a plate-sized bluegill is the meanest fish in the world. And they fight.
Crappie can get pretty aggressive too, or fighting.
Yeah.
I enjoy crappie and bass mostly. Bluegill's okay. It's not my favorite because it's similar to catfishing. It's a lot of sitting and waiting. I'm just kidding. So realistically, I don't mind the sitting and waiting because you're right. Just like hunting, it has its place. It gets me more, you kind of get to relax and enjoy being on the river, being at the lake or whatever. I just enjoy giving you a hard time.
When you get to this age, you need your relax, and you need your rest.
But then, you 72?
75, 75, something like that.
Gosh, you're old.
I think 52. No, 50.
See, I'm only 21, so I'm just kidding. My wife says,
no, I'm 33. I'm going to be 54. That's what I'm going to be, is 54. But yeah, the older. But it wasn't even about really when I got older. I really loved, while I was tight lining, I would run a lot of jugs or try lines. And I loved to run try lines and jugs.
oh yeah, I used to.
But that was, to me, that tied in with.
Jugs where it's legal, yes.
Yeah, well, I never run it. It wasn't legal.
I'm just throwing that out there.
There you go.
Not that I have.
The places that I used to run try lines, that was when I was still trapping a lot, and I considered those try lines just like setting traps. And I would go and I'd set my try lines, and then I would either go bass fish or go throw out a bunch of jugs and play with them until I needed to run the lines.
Okay, now anytime I've gone catfishing, I reckon you probably do the same thing. I don't know if you have a holder for it. We used to just get your rod out there, cast it out there, and sit and dig a stick in the ground that had 2 forks that come out of it, and you just kind of you rest your rod up against that and hope it doesn't get gone.
Yeah, I've done that enough. I don't do that no more.
You just kind of prop it up there just so, but you got to keep an eye on it. Of course, you don't.
Yeah, you can leave in a hurry.
Nothing can.
No, if I'm at a pond, I do that because I'm not expecting that big of a fish. But at the river,
you don't know what you're getting in that river.
No,
you got a shark for all you know.
Around here you could. I guess. If I'm where there are rocks, I always use the rocks as the rod holder and put it down in the rocks where it can't go anywhere. But I built my own rod holders to use on the sandbars to wear.
PVC pipe?
It's a piece of PVC pipe and a piece of angle iron. And then really a while ago before we went to lunch, I bought some fiberglass rebar, 1/2-inch fiberglass rebar, and some pipe brackets.
Give you a little extra support there.
And, well, I'm going to build them out of that fiberglass rebar with pipe attached to the rebar with pipe clamps, and then it'll be a lot lighter than the angle iron stakes that I carried last year.
That'd be just
make me more mobile.
That'd be a pretty good rig.
But I've got all that to build this morning because if it gets up warm today, I'm going fishing today.
That's nice. By river, you're fishing the Ohio, right? Yeah, because
I fish the Ohio. What I have always fished is the Ohio, but this year I will be fishing the Mississippi as well. And then I'm also going to come to Kentucky, so I'll be fishing Tennessee. I want to fish below Kentucky Dam.
My neck of the woods.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to your neck of the woods in Illinois and go fishing.
Right. And I'm going to take you to some bass ponds, and then I'm going to take you to my other spot too.
I'll be honest, okay? I am looking forward to being able to go catfishing and just sit and relax and talk and enjoy catfishing with you.
Well, it'll be a great place to do a podcast.
But gosh, yeah, it would be. It would be. Well, live from the river, live from the Ohio or Mississippi, whichever we're at.
Well, it's going to be both places.
Oh, there we go. Gosh, either one of those. There's so many big fish you can get in on.
There are. I mean, it's, and that's one of the things that I really, really like about the catfishing is that, you have no idea if that hit is going to be a 1 pound channel cat or a 50-pound blue.
Okay. With all that said, I'm looking forward to going catfishing with you, but bass fishing is still better. Just saying.
Hey, whatever you like, whatever floats your boat.
So, sorry, we're a little long-winded on this one, but I think that's going to wrap it up. Oh, we had a lot of fun doing this one, just arguing about fishing. All in good fun, of course. He's not really going to kill me, I don't think.
Probably not. Left me on the bait.
So we thank you again. We're so happy to have you here. Hope you stick around and enjoy the content we're bringing you. We got more coming, especially once we get into the fishing season.
Yeah.
And, oh, gosh, there's so much we're going to do.
Everything. There's just so much coming. And be sure, just like in that story of God giving the increase on the fish, let God increase in your life.
Yes, 100%.
That is the main thing. Whether we're hunting, whether we're fishing, whether we're talking to our neighbor or our family or someone at work, let God do the increase. You've just got to be willing to let him do it.
100%. So we thank you again for listening. Again, we're happy to have you here. We hope that if you like what you're hearing, that you would, follow us on Spotify or whichever podcast platform you're using. Give us a rating, whatever you feel is necessary, and we'd appreciate that. Also, consider joining Christian Bow Hunters of America.
Yeah.
Check it out. See what you think. If you like it, go ahead and join.
Go ahead and join. See if there's a chapter in your area. If there's not a chapter in your area, consider starting a chapter in your area.
Yep.
You can contact us. You can contact the head office there in New York, the state of New York, not the city of New York. I'm very good friends with the director of Christian Bow Hunters of America. He's a wonderful man, and he loves the Lord, and that's what Christian Bow Hunters of America is about. That's what Joshua 24:15 is about, and that's what we want our lives to be about.
Seeking him in all that you do.
That's right.
Whether it be the outdoors, your work life, your home life, whatever.
Right.
Okay, that's going to have to do it. We're way over time here. So,
y'all,
you have a good one.